Okay, geweldig. We are up to the top of Ayin Testament Aleph. The Gemara was in the middle of darshaning the psukim of Al Kain Yomer Amoishlim Boyu Cheshboin, that it's referring to the Moishlim B'Yitzram. Okay. So we were actually a little bit in the middle. We were up to the one dot that's 3 lines down on Daf Ayin Testament Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav Kol HaPorish M'Divrei Torah. Anybody who separates from Divrei Torah and the Mashal learns that it's talking about two people that are mevatel each other, Eish Oich Lason. So our Gemara is gers with a vav, Eish Oich Lasoi, but the Mashal actually is gers Eish Oich Lason, Eish will eat them. The Nemar, it says in the pasuk, the Sati as Panai Bahem, I'm going to put my focus on them. Mea Eish Yatsu, they left Torah, which is Nimshla Eish, like the Rashbam says, Alaikoi Devari Ka'esh, says Miminai Eish Das Lamai, Via Eish Taichleim, and therefore the Eish of the Goyim, the fire of the Goyim that want to destroy us, will get to them. So it's not like a punishment. You fight fire with fire, but if they don't have the fire of Torah, they're going to be susceptible to the fire of the Goyim. Rabbi Razin spoke out something very interesting in Miminoi Eish Das Lamoi. Let me just think if I could think of what he was referring to. There's a shaila that they ask, why is it that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu went to the Umay Sa'olam, why is it that he told them Oleg like Sirtzach, right away, they didn't want it. He told the French Loisinov, Vos Epis, why didn't he tell them? When they asked Max Sivvei, he should have said, face Tikkun Halam. He should have said things that they liked. Vos Epis, he said things the dafka that they didn't like. So there are those who answer. So why did he start with Lo Shirtzach? So there are those who answer that may be what a Kodesh Baruch Hu would have said. But the problem is the moment they ask what's in it, so they're already saying we're not so excited about taking the Torah. We don't want to be mishaber ourselves to you. First, let's see what it says. Then we'll see if we like it. So then Hashem purposely says something that they wouldn't like because that's exactly what he wanted to see. Are they going to be subservient? Klaishel didn't ask what's in the Torah. We had Nasav and Ishmael. So that's why we got the Torah. But there's another shot that they say, so I don't know if it's in Gant and but it's Mimino Eish Das Lama HaKadosh Baruch Hu was given the Torah, which is written in Lashon HaKodesh. Lashon HaKodesh is written from right to left. They wanted it in their language from left to right. From left to right, if you have two luchos, Ani Hashem is on the right, but on the left it says L'Sirtzach. That's the first of the one on the left. So that's why they got it away. Although that's not supposed to, because there are some languages that are not Lashon Kodesh that are also written from right to left, like Arabic, right? So it's not supposed to. It was just an interesting point.
They may have said Har Kegigis. I mean, they may have said Nasav Nishma, but what about the Har Kegigis medrash?
That's the Moedor Rabbi Larai, so we needed a way out. He didn't have brought down that we would have said Nasav Nishma anyway, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it go down that way, so that we should be able to have a way out and say that we were forced.
Okay, that's a third medrash.
You're also right.
Yeah.
Dr. Gemara. Ki also Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yosy. Kol HaPorish Atzmai M'Divrei Torah. And this the Mashal says it's speaking about one person, someone who separates himself from Divrei Torah. Neufel b'Gehenim, he will fall to Gehenim. Shenamar Adam Toya Miderech HaSeichel. If someone is Toya, he turns away from, or he gets lost away from the Derech HaSeichel, the Kal Reform Yenuach, he will be in the Kahal of Reform, which Pashim Shot means the dead people. The Ein Reform Mel Gehinnom, and Reform refers to Gehinnom. Shenemar v'lo yoda ki refoim shom amkei sha'al kruel. He didn't know that by taking away from the Torah, what's he going to find there? What he's going to find there is dead people in Gehenna. So we learn from there that someone who falls away from the Torah is Neifel again. Okay, now we're getting back to Bava Basra. So our Mishnah listed off a whole bunch of things that if you sell, it doesn't include, or whether or not it includes the contents. So it says Machar Ashba in the Mishnah, Machar Zvala. So if you sold the Ashba, which is basically a little pit that has in it manure, it includes all of the manure. Tanan Hashem we learned. Kol royal mizbeach. Now this seems like it's not really relevant halacha l'maisa, but in fact, this Gemara will be relevant halacha l'maisa. Let's see the Gemara. Kol royal mizbeach v'loy lebedek habayis. What if you have something that you're donating to the Beis Hamikdash, and it's royal mizbeach, like a short tam, like an animal that can be brought as a korban, like wine, like oil, things that are royal to be brought in the mizbeach, but not for bedek habayis. As the Rishbam tells us, that if you have an animal that's a tam, that's royal to be brought in the mizbeach, it can be brought as a korban, you're not allowed to donate it to bedek habayis. It has to be brought and used. It's similar to real estate. You have to look when you buy land. The value of the land is based on the highest value use that you can have. If you can build a house on land, it has one value. But if you're going to build a 50-story condo on that land, the land becomes worth much more. So when you bring something to Hekdesh, you always have to use the highest level. You have to donate it for the highest level that it could be brought for. Okay, so Zok to Gemara, and the Rishbam speaks out that matvis tamimim lebedek habayis. If you give an animal that could be brought on the mizbeach, you give it to bedek habayis over ba'asei, you would be over ba'asei. So the Rishbam gives a whole bunch of examples of things that would be brought as karbanos. Kesef, eis tamimim, toirim b'nei yoina, soilas, levoina, yain, v'shemen. All of these things, they themselves are brought on the mizbeach. Or the bedek habayis v'lo the mizbeach. What if it's building materials that are used actually in the construction of things needed in the Beis Hamikdash? As the Rashbam says, Zov, Chesef, Avodim Yikarais, all these things that are actually used in the Beis Hamikdash. That's a second category. The third category is Eloi leMizbeach, Eloi levedek habayis. Here the Rashbam says something a little bit interesting. So let's have a look. We're going chalav, milk. You don't bring that on the mizbeach, and you can't use milk. There's nowhere in the construction process that milk is needed. Gvina or cheese, murai, so like something like fish juice, ashba, asavim, grasses, chayotaben, v'cholhani dekatani, risha and choshen. The three categories that we listed, the first category is the most choshen. The kach mizbeach, chashivi mikache bedek habayis. If the kach bedek habayis, thing that you actually can use in the Beis Hamikdash, chashivi mikache domim, shein ruin gufon loy lemizbeach, v'loy lebedek habayis. All you could do with these items are elo limacher v'likach midmeim tzorchem mizbeach oy bedek habayis. What would you do with these items that cannot be brought on the mizbeach, nor are they needed for the actual upkeep of the Beis Hamikdash? You sell them. The money, what do you do with the money? It depends on how it was specified. If he said, I want this sold and you should buy a carbon with it, then that's what will be done. But if he says, I want it sold and it to be used for the upkeep, then it'll be used for the kabayas. Each one is a bigger chiddush than the next. The chamiri, the moil and the masha b'soichan, we're talking sunabam meila. Never mind the first category, which is something that's mamish right to be brought in the mizbeach. Surely there you would be moil if you had enough from it. Even something that's given to the Beis Hamikdash that has to be liquidated, even that is going to be something that you would be moil. So let's get down to the halacha of the brayso. So we listed off three types of categories. Mo'alin bahen, you're moil on them, u'b'masha b'soichan, and what's inside them. So we're going to see how this is relevant. Ketzad, Hekdesh bar Malaya Mayim. What if somebody was makdish a bar that's full of water? Or ashbois Malaya Sevel, or an ashba that's full of Sevel. So these are examples of things in the Mishnah. Or shoivech malayonim, he had a coop that was full of birds. Or sada Malaya, a field that's full of grass. Or Elon Nasui pears. You have a tree that's fully loaded with pears. Allah is my alam bahen uvama shebesayf. Okay, let's see what these categories are. Zok the Heliger Rashbam, he's going to explain what's the bahem and what's the besaycha in these items that the Bryson just listed. So malimayim, kishehikdish lahisker ela esapah. If you said I'm being makdish the bar and the mayim, they're both bahen. The bahen and the besaycha is mashma, you were makdish them. Nevertheless, you also are moil in what they contain, but you weren't directly makdish what they contain. So mayim, which category does mayim fit into? Zokter Rashbam, it fits in ruin lebekabah lasos tit. You might ask me, why isn't it royal mizbeach? But royal mizbeach, the mayim mechunosim psulim lenisach hamayim. Nisach hamayim, you have to get from mayim chayim, not from just a bar. That wouldn't be eligible. So all you'd use the water for is for other functions of the upkeep of the Beis Hamikdash. The gam ein madichin basar karbonos elamei amas hamayim shebazara. You can't use it for another function of karbonos in rinsing off the meats, because you're only allowed to take from the little brook that flows through the Azara. Ashbush Mloy Zevel. What are those? The Zevel is Loilam Mizbech for Loilam Bekabayis. Once again, mayim you might be able to use in Bedekabayis, but Zevel has zero purpose. All it's worth is what you could sell it for. Shavich Malayonim, that's Royal Mizbech for Loilam Bedekabayis, referring to the Yonim. The Lechazi L'Shakam Bebinyan, you definitely can't use a pigeon as a block. But Shavich Atzmai, in this case, the Shavich Atzmai also is Lehuktash Elo Ledhamov. All you're doing is you're being makdish in a cell. You're definitely not going to dismantle it and transport it over to the Beis Hamikdash. The Moikanoi Mimekaimai Litnai Bebinyan, if you try dismantling it and then use it somehow in the construction process, in the maintenance process, that'll destroy its value. A shoivich standing where it is worth a lot of money. You break it up into its pieces, it destroys its value. It's referring to amasha besoichem. We're not talking about the actual item, we're talking about masha besoichem, when the Bryce is discussing what category it fits into. It's not focusing on what you were makdish, it's focusing on the masha b'soich. It's poshut that if it got a status of kachim mizbeach, surely they're hekdesh, and if you have enough from them, you're going to be moil. And you have a nami kachim b'dekabayis, you'll be moil on them as well, and even if it's only for its value to sell. Elon Mole Paris, Paris cannot be used anywhere in the korban process, nor can Paris be used as part of maintenance for the Beis Hamikdash. You can't bring them as a korban. You're not allowed to use honey. You're not allowed to use sourdough or honey on the mizbech. And ubikurim, those are pears. It's lakayin and ketrum. There's also an interesting shaila. I believe the Minchas Chinuch struggles to understand why is it that you're not allowed to bring saor or devash on the mizbeach. So the Minchas Chinuch actually writes that I'm struggling to understand it, but I did make a commitment to explain all of the mitzvahs of the Torah, so I got to come up with something. And especially since the people don't take a mitzvah seriously, so it's going to have an effect on their attitude towards the other mitzvahs of the Torah. So he said, Ula, you could say that the reason why the Rebbe Shem doesn't want Sa'or and the Vash on the Mizbeach is because Sa'or is something that makes dough rise slowly. It's a very slow process. In the base of Mikdash, Zerizas is required. It's got to be 1, 2, 3. There's no waiting around. You sometimes are Makav Chometz like the Shtei Alechem. So Zakti a communal thing, we're not concerned about laziness. People are mizarres each other. But personal karbonos can't be brought with Sar, and Dvash shouldn't be brought because it's too indulging. It's too sweet. And indulgence is something that's not either appropriate for the base of Mikdash. That's what the Hekdesh says, for the reason it please. Anyway, so they mole asofim. You have a field full of grass, so grass as well. Asofim loy chazo loy the mizbech loy the kabayis. You're just going to sell it. My alam bahen. Here's the focus. Im nehen mehen shavar pruta. So bahen is referring to the actual item that you donated, and the masha b'soichan are the different things that we discussed. What category they fit into? Mayim and yoinim and peiros, right? So what is the bahen? Im nehen mehen shavar pruta. If you have enough from the shavar pruta, kegoyin hitznia chafetza v'bar. How do you have hana from a bar, and therefore you'll have me'ilah? Zok to Rashbam. Simple. If you used it to protect something, you hit something in the bar. Or you put a barrel of water into the bar, it's cooler under the ground. So you're trying to use the bar to cool off your barrel. Or you don't want something to get lost, so you hang it high on a tree. Or you put yoinim in the shoybech, so you want to benefit from the shoybech. Or or you add zevel, so you put it in the makam ha'ashba, so there you're having a no from the ashba. Correct Tosfos, that can't be true, because Tosfos says you cannot be moil on something that's mechuber l'karka. Let's have a look at the very top Tosfos. Sheyesh me'ilah b'mashe niach chafetza v'bar. That's the Pirush B'Kudros. So Tosfos refers to the Rashbam as Kudros, just like he refers to Rashi. They near the Rebbeinu Tam. The Yom Ba'ashuleich with Perakamat Sanhedrin. That Makdish Avdoi ain't moil in the Sayroi. If you're Makdish and Eved, and then you have enough from his hair, you're not moil. Mishum de Iskish Likarkois. So what does that have to do with it? It must be Almod Ein Me'ilah b'Mechuber. It must be that you're not going to be able to be over Me'ilah even if you have a no from Hekdesh if it's Mechuber. And for Tosfos, I'm going to skip a little bit to the bottom, second to the bottom line. The Yomer by the time the Shaykh Me'ilah b'Bar. What if you pulled a rock or something out of the bar? So after you were toilish, part of the bar, that's when you had to know. That's what it means. The Ramban has an interesting shot that maybe you could massage into the Rashbam. And he says, what happens if I have a bar and I decide that I want to tile it? I want it to be a nice, smooth bar. So I put tiles on. So those tiles are tolush ulu b'soif chavvan, right? You start off tolush, and now you connected them. L'gabe the din of me'ilah, they have a din of tolush. So therefore, maybe that's what it means. Bahen, how will you have anah from a bar? You have enough from a bar because you have enough from the tiles in the bar, and those are now mechuber, but they're now mechuber, but you could still be moil on them because that's a tolush ulu b'soif chavvan. Okay, so Dr. Gemara weiter. Now we're going to talk about another category. So Ma'alan Bahen, you're moil on those. The Ein Moilin. I'm sorry, I skipped. Ma'alan Bahen Uva Masha B'Seichen. Aval Hekdesh Bar the Achagach Nismali Mayim. What if you makdish a bar and then rain came and it got filled? Or Ashba the Achagach Nismala Zevel, and afterwards it got full of Zevel. Or Shoyvech, the Achagach Nismala and Yoinim, and only afterwards did it get full. Or Elon, the Achagach Nasa Perex. Or Soda, the Achagach Nismala Sovim, my Alan Bahen, the Ein my Alan, the Masha Besoichan, Diver Rabbi. There you won't be moil. Why not? Zok the Rashbam, Ein my Alan, the Masha Besoichan. The Sphere Rabbi Yehuda ein me'ila begidulin. Anything that grows out of what you were makdish, there is no me'ila. The mishum grama the kagorim le karka hekdesh ligadel, just because the ground of hekdesh caused these things to grow like the grass, ein lanu lasoy hekdesh. That will not make it into hekdesh. If you call makim, ein mamoshoy the hekdesh more man. There's no hekdesh in there. So just because this grew from hekdesh, just because water came into a bore and the bore belonged to hekdesh, that doesn't matter, because there's no mamoshes, as the Bach is glorious here. There's no mamoshes of hekdesh mixed into here. Okay, let's have a look over here. So there's really two categories in the list. Mayim in a bar, there, if water shows up in the bar, yes, it's in the bar, but it didn't grow from the bar. Mashenkin, something growing out of a field of hekdesh, there I think it's more mistaber to say it did grow out of hekdesh. So I think we could all agree that it's more mistaber that something that grew from hekdesh should be hekdesh, which is gedula hekdesh, than water that just showed up in a bar of hekdesh. But the first sheet of our brisa does not make any distinction. All of these things, the ein moilin, the masha b'soichan, the gedolei hekdesh, do not become hekdesh, and therefore there's no me'ilah. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosy Omer, hamakdesh es hasoda ve'asei ilan, when it's something that's actually growing out of the hekdesh, water, like we said, just shows up there. But if it's actually growing from the hekdesh, like makdesh es hasoda ve'silan, then moilin behen uvegidulehem mipnei shehein gidolei hekdesh, because they are gidolei hekdesh, and they will become hekdesh, and therefore there will be a din me'ilah. Okay, Valti. There's no Rashbam on it. Let me think if I have. There's a very, very important toast. The Ein Mayal Masha B'Soichai, which is the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Correct us. Why should you be Mayal Masha B'Soichai? Because the Loyamrinon Sheyikne Chotzar Hekdesh. So now what we're saying is this bar belongs to Hekdesh. If it rains and rain goes into the bar, why would you say that rain becomes hekdesh? You were a makdesh. Zog Taisus, do you know why you might consider it hekdesh? Because the hekdesh through kinyan chotzer will be kind of the water. Zog Taisus, the lawyer minon sheyikna chotzer hekdesh kamoy shekoyna chotzer hedi. If water falls into your personal field, you're kind of that water. If you have a bar and water falls into it, you're kind of, because chatzer shaladam kind shalom yidaita. Hekdesh does not have that feature. The chatzar mishum yadis rabbi. We say the reason why a chatzar is pointed for you because it's like it's your yad, and if something falls into your hand, you're pointed. But v'loimatinu yad lahekdesh. You don't find that hekdesh has a din yad. So that's the reasoning for Rabbi Yehuda. Why is that ein mo'alim b'masha b'soichai? Because just because something falls into the chatzar of hekdesh, it doesn't mean that hekdesh was pointed. So it sounds from Toisus like hekdesh is not even koined. So not only is there no din me'ilah, it's not even taking something of hekdesh. It's not hekdesh. It's still considered hef. Why is this nagei halacha l'maisa? Because what happens if you find money on the floor in the bais medrash? Do you say it's lost money and therefore it's hefker and you're allowed to take it, or do you say it belongs to the shul? Because chatzeroi of hekdesh, a shul is like hekdesh. So is money dropped in the shul automatically belong to the shul? I'm talking about after Yush. Before Yush, even if your thing falls into someone's chotzer, he's not playing it, right? But after Yush, if it automatically belongs to the shul, then you're not allowed to take it. So that's where it's negaya. So there are those who learn that even like these Rishonim, that it's that the chotzer is not koina. It doesn't mean it's mamish not koina. It does belong to hekdesh, but there's no din me'ilan. So there's a big shaila about this. If you find money in the bais medrash and you know the person was miyayish, would you be able to keep it or not? And it will be toila in if hekdesh would have a kinyan chotzer. So zok the Gemara weiter. So we have a Rabbi Yehuda who holds that anything that grows out of hekdesh that you were makdesh, there's no din me'ilan. And then we have Rabbi Yosy Shita who holds Rabbi Yosy Omer Hamakdish is a soda. V'yasa ilan me'alan b'hen uve gidulayim. And he's speaking about growth. Why? Mipnei shehein gidoy hekdesh. And he obviously learns that something that grows out of hekdesh does have a din. Tanya Omer Rebbe. So Rebbe comes now to be machriya between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosy. And he said, near and diva Rabbi Yehuda, I think I agree with Rabbi Yehuda, because there, what you found in the bar, the water, what you found in the shovich, the birds, they didn't grow out of the davar shel hekdesh. They just showed up there, and as Tosfos tells us, you're not koine hekdesh. Hekdesh is not koine b'chotz. But the diva Rabbi Yosy b'soda v'ila. But I do think that by soda v'ila, where it's actually growing from hekdesh, there it would have a kedusha. Oh, that's what you're saying. But that's exactly what the discussion of the Gemara is. It's exactly what the Gemara is going to be discussing. Is Rabbi Yosy arguing on Rabbi Yehuda by bar and shovich as well? Because he only expressed his opinion by Paris of a soda, right? So that's exactly the question. So hi mai. Let's analyze what's going on over here. Bishlama nir and diver Rabbi Yehuda bar v'shovich. Saying near and diver Rabbi Yehuda bar v'shovich indicates that Rabbi Yehuda said additional items, right? Rabbi Yehuda's halacha wasn't limited to bar v'shovich. Rabbi's only passing like Rabbi Yehuda by bar v'shovich. Mechlal de polid asad devila. It must be that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is also applying to asad and the ilan, but Rabbi's only agreeing with him for bar v'shovich. But the second statement that Rabbi made, Elanir and Div Rabbi Yosy v'sad v'ilan, that would indicate mechlal de pligi v'bar v'shovich. But that's not true, exactly as Dovi pointed out. For Rabbi Yosy, Sada ve'ilan kamar. That's where he's arguing, but he's not arguing by bar v'shovich. So what do you mean near and div Rabbi Yosy, which is mashma that you're only partially agreeing to what Rabbi Yosy said? You're passing like him and God. V'chiteimu l'dvar Rabbi Yehuda kamar. If you want to say that we have misunderstood Rabbi Yosy, Rabbi Yosy is arguing sai by Elon and Sada and sai by bar v'shovich. So why did Rabbi Yosy only express his opinion by Elon and Sada? It's l'divid Rabbi Yehuda kamar. And you think, Rabbi Yehuda, okay, I argue with you across the board, even Mayim in a bar and Yoinim in a shovich, I hold that's also hekdesh, and I hold there'll be me'ila there as well. But even you, who are inclined to argue on me, at least be moided to me by a Sada and the Ila. So if you're going to tell me that that's what Rabbi Yosy meant to say, but he's really arguing on Rabbi Yehuda, even by a bar and a shovich, and therefore, right, Rabbi can come up and say, I only agree with Rabbi Yosy by a Sada and Elon, then it would make sense. But you can't say that, because Rabbi Yosy was very clear in a brisa of what he meant. Vatanya Rabbi Yosy, ein ani roya deveri shel Rabbi Yehuda b'Sada v'Elon mipnei shehein gidoy lehekdesh. It's so he said b'Ferish, it's only by Sada and the Elon where I have a problem with Rabbi Yehuda. It's b'Sada v'Elon who the einay roya. Have a bar v'shovich, but by a bar v'shovich roya. So clearly Rabbi Yosy is not arguing on Rabbi Yehuda by a bar and a shovich. So I bezoi, what did Rabbi mean when he said Nirin Divrei Rabbi Yosy b'Sada v'Elon? That's he should have just said halachic Rabbi Yosy, not Nirin Devar. If Nirin Devar, it means I'm only agreeing to him partially, but you're really paskening like him and Gans. Zok to Gemara Hachi Kamer. Maybe this is what we're saying. Nirin Divrei Rabbi Yehuda li Rabbi Yosy. Even Rabbi Yosy agrees with Rabbi Yehuda b'bar v'shovich. Why? Rabbi Yosy's whole opinion is only by Asada v'Elon, but he's not arguing by bar v'shovich. But he's mighty by a bar v'shovich. So the first thing we have to ask is, why did I need Rabbi to tell me that? We knew that without Rabbi, right? A and B is, but it says near in the verb. How could you say it doesn't mean that? So the Rashbam explains very beautifully. In fact, maybe Rabbi Yosy did mean Lidvara of Rabbi Yehuda. What the Dvar Rabbi means really, Rabbi Yossi is saying, I agree, I argue with you across the board. Even by a bar and a shoivach, I hold the masha b'soichan, the water that comes in later will be hekdesh. Why would you say something like that? So after Rashbam, we're very shortly about to learn the Shita of Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon, who holds Adam Makta Davar Shaloi B'La'olam, that holds, in fact, that the water would be kodesh, would become hekdesh. So don't learn the wrong shot in Rabbi Yossi, that he's really arguing with Rabbi Yehuda across the board. And even though he only expressed his halacha by a sudden Elon, it's only because he's saying Rabbi Yehuda. He's telling Rabbi Yehuda, I argue with you across the board, but at least concede to me by an Elon and a sudden. Don't learn like that. Rather learn that Rabbi Yossi only expressed his opinion. He only is arguing by a sudden Elon. So how do you read the brisa? So let's go back to Rebbe. Amar Rebbe, Nirin Divi Rabbi Yehuda Bevar V'Shoivach. I like Rabbi Yehuda's halacha lagavi bar v'shoivach, but I would disagree with Rabbi Yehuda by Elon and Sada. It doesn't say Nirin Divi Rabbi Yossi b'Sada v'Elon. It says V'Divi Rabbi Yossi b'Sada v'Elon. Sucked Rabbi Yossi only said his halacha by a sudden Elon. Don't learn shot on Rabbi Yossi that he's l'dvar of Rabbi Yehuda Kamerlei, but he really argues by Sada, by Elon, by Bar and Shoivach. No, V'Divi Rabbi Yossi b'Sada v'Elon. Rabbi's telling us don't learn wrong shot on Rabbi Yossi. Right shot on Rabbi Yossi is that he only said it. He is only arguing by a Sada and Elon. So now you have an important information that Rabbi is sharing with us to learn right shot on Rabbi Yossi, and it fits in. That's why he's bedafka, not gers, v'nir and diver Rabbi Yossi, because that would blow up this pshat. Okay, go about it. Tana Rabban. Hekdesh on Reikanim. What if you were marked this bar and it was empty? And I picked bar as an example, but it could just as well mean I was marked a tree in it that it was empty. And the Gemara is specifically going to discuss what it's talking about. But right now our options are open to be referring to all four categories that we discussed here: bar, shoivech, elon, and sada. So when you were makish it, they were empty. The achagach nesmalu, and only afterwards did they get filled up. The halach is my alan behen ve'ein my alan b'masha b'say. Okay, that sounds like, depending on what it's referring to, it could be consistent with Rabbi Yehuda, or it even could be consistent with Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Elazar Omer, Rabbi Shimon Omer, af my alan b'masha b'say. So this is the shita that we were talking about a moment ago. Even no matter what it is, could be also moil b'masha b'say. And we're going to see the reasoning for Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon on Amud Beis. Amar Rabba, the machlokes is b'sada v'ilon. The machlokes is dafka by sada v'ilon. The Tanakama sober like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanakama holds like Rabbi Yehuda that even by a sada and elon, you're not moil b'masha b'say. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon sober like Rabbi Yossi, and maybe Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Yossi, and that's why the water. That's why things that grow out of Hekdesh, Paris, and the Sovim are going to be Hekdesh. Aval b'bar v'shoivach. But if it was a bar and a shoivach, divrei hakoil my alam behen vein moil masha b'soichel. But by a bar and a shoivach, we just said a moment ago, even Rabbi Yossi agrees that you're not moil masha b'soichel. That is what Rabbah wanted to say pshat in this brisa that we just quoted. But Amalei Abaye asked his Rebbe that can't be pshat because the brisa continues. What if when you were makdish them, when you were makdish the bar, it was full of water? When you were makdish the tree, there were already pears on it. What does the brisa say? My alan bahen uvemasha b'soichan. You're more on both. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon machlif. Rabbi Elazar holds over here the opposite. Over here he holds that you're moil bahen. I'm sorry, Rabbi Elazar holds the opposite. In the case of Hekdesh Reikanin V'Nismalu, there Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon holds that it's going to become Hekdesh. Over here, it's not Hekdesh, which is completely counterintuitive. If I'm Makdish, even a davar shaloi b'la'olam, meaning if the water comes later, I'm being Makdish it now. If the water is there now, surely it should be considered Hekdesh. So why would Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon take the opposite stance in a case where it was Hekdesh Melayan? The svara is Hekdesh Melayan with the right here when I'm Makdish it, there surely it should be Hekdesh. Especially if you hold that if the water comes later, I'm Makdish it. Surely, if the water is there right now, while I'm being Makdish it, surely there it should be Hekdesh as well. So the way you're learning pshat, that it's a machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosy, there's no way to explain why Hekdesh and Malayan, Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon, should take the opposite opinion that it's not considered hek. So therefore, we need pshat. Let's see the response. Rabbi Elazar machlef hechlef chitase. The la'il gab Hekdesh and Mekanin. He said, "Moyalim b'masha b'saychim." The hacha ka'amar over here where it's full of water when you're makdish the bar. Ein moyalim b'masha b'saychim. It doesn't make any sense to say that. Umshum the mills of the teimu. The coach again because it's not a double shalom. Surely it's going to be yaktish. That's why we use the word makliv, because Elazar B'Shimon is turning it over on its head when the case is hekdishon malayan. The ibisad of Elon turning on Tamil base. If we're talking about a sad of Elon, am I makliv? Why in the world would Rabbi Elazar B'Shimon change his stats? As Rishbam says, the ibisad of Elon il gabek reikalan. Why is it different if it was a Hekdesh and Malayan? You have two things in favor of it being Hekdesh. It's Gedoyle Hekdesh, and the Gam Hekdesh Akal B'Yachad. The Lagam Remarker shouldn't be any worse than if you sell it. If you sell a bar, it includes the Mayim. If you're going to sell it on by a bar and a Shoivach, then so if you're going to learn to speak by Sada and Elon, like Rabba said, there's no way to explain why Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon would say that it's not Hekdesh if it was Hekdesh and Malayan. LMI, we're going to have to take a different approach to Pshat and the Bryce. El Omer Rabba as follows: Machlokes bebar b'shoivim. Machlokes Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon and the Tanakama in the Bryce that we just quoted is by a bar and a shoiva, where the Tanakama holds that water that came later will not become hekdesh, while Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon holds water that came later will become hekdesh. Everybody agrees which would be the sheet of Rabbi Yosy. So Gemara. So now that you told me that the Bryce is speaking by a bar and a shoiva, let's try to understand Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon. Why does he hold that water that comes into a bar later will become hekdesh? And why does he hold that if the water's in the bar now, it won't become hekdesh? It's still counterintuitive. What is the svara, and why would there be a difference according to Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon? If I was makdish a bar that was empty, and then water came into it later, meaning it's a davar shaloi b'la'olam, that is the machlokes of Rav Meir and Rabbanon by the classic case of davar shaloi b'la'olam. The Tanakam is sarva l'Rabbanon that you can't be makdish. The Amri ain't other makdish davar shaloi b'la'olam. The water wasn't there when I was makdish the bar, so surely that water does not become hekdesh. As the Tanakam says, you're not moil in the water. Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon savar Rav Meir the Amar Adam makdish davar shaloi b'la'olam. So therefore, even though the water is not there yet, I'm being makdish it. Eimer, so Mati's asking the Gemara's question. Eimer, the Shamas, Leila, Reb Meir, to go in Paris Dekel, David Yosy. What was Reb Meir talking about? If I sell Paris Dekel, it's naturally going to occur that the payers are going to grow out of the Dekel. Hani, mi Eimer Dosi, who said it's going to rain and water's going to go into this bar? So this is less than the Davar Shloi B'Laylam. So for Mati, that's not the sheet of Reb Meir. So you can't blame Reb Meir for the fact that Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon is saying that this water is also going to be hekdesh. Amarava, no, it could also be avididas. Mishkachas la b'mayim habam derech hatzerei. Labar. What if your chater is built on an incline and all of the water in it drains down to the bar? There, you know for sure it's going to rain eventually. We're not close to it's never going to rain. The question is, who said the bar is going to get filled up? Because the bar is a catch basin. If the bar is a catch basin, it's guaranteed to get filled up. So it'll be similar to Perish Degel David Yosy. V'yoinin haboyim derech shayvchay l'shayvach. He has shayvchim all around the shayvach that he was makdish. It's guaranteed one of his birds are going to fly in there. So that's also considered avididas. That's a beautiful, beautiful svar, which Tosfos actually says. Tosfos says there's a svara that it's growing out of here. So it's roots. There's atoms here that are going to be developing into this. So it really is just Hekdesh getting bigger. That's one of the svaras that Tosfos discusses. And Tosfos discusses if someone says I read Hekdesh li la'achashet iskayr after I become a ger, that's also not a davar shel. Why? So that's what we're talking. It's to still me that I'm this. So Tosfos goes through all the different svaras of what's called really here and what's called out. So there's a lot of nuances on that, and that's this long Tosfos here. Tosfos Dimar Maskal Aimer. So that's a very good point that you're bringing up. So Zok to Gemara, Amarava. So we did already. So what's the so by the Rikonin, the machlokes is if you're makdish a davar shaloi belod uvemalei b'ma'pli, and what are they? And well, there's another point I have to bring up. Forget the problem of davar shaloi beloilam. How could I be makdish water that was never mine? It's not my water. If water goes into a bar, it has nothing to do with davar shaloi beloilam. It's not mine to be makdish. That's another kasha that's asked. I'm sorry. It's on my bar. It's Hekdesh's bar. So where was it ever mine that I could be makdish? That's totally enough. I'm makdish davar shaloi beloilam. I don't to do that. So that's another shot. That's why it's mine. It rained first into my property where I would be kanya, and then it runs into the bar. So that's why it's called. That's why it is something that did become mine, because my chutz would be kanya, but it's still a davar shaloi beloilam. So what's the machlokes by malayim? Why does Rabbi Elazar Shimon take the opposite stance? It's more of a davar shaloi beloilam. So surely Rabbi Elazar should agree that it becomes that. Amarava going to Hekdesh bar stam. He wasn't makdish the bar and the mayim. He was only makdish the bar. He said, "I'm being makdish this bar." The question is, when you're makdish a bar, does it include the water? Well, let me ask you a question. If Hekdesh is like mechira, even according to the time that Hekdesh is like mechira, it's not bein yofet. By a mechira, if you say I'm being makdish, I'm selling you my bar, does it include the water? The halach is it does. So zok to Gemara. To go and check this bar stop. Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon Savarla Kavua. Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon holds like his father, Rab Shimon. The Omar Don in Din Gavoya Midin Hedget. When it comes to Hekdesh, you don't say Hekdesh, you're giving more. You're giving more the ayin yafe. Rather, you say when you're makdish, it's no different than a mecher. Madin Hedget, Matzah Amalei, beer is vinalach, Mayla is vinalach. If I sell you a bar, I'm not including the water. After Gavoya, so too when you're makdish, beer akdish, Mayla akdish. Frankly, more, but that's not true. Within Hedget Loy, are you telling me that if I sell you a bar, it doesn't include the water? But now we learned in the Mishnah, Machar bar, Machar meimah. Right? We learned it just earlier. We just learned it yesterday. Machar bar, Machar meimah. It includes the water. So how could Rabbi Elazar Shimon say that it's not including the water? Amarava masnisin yechidai. Our Mishnah that says Machar bar, Machar meimah is a shittas yachid, and we paskin like the other brisa. The Tanya Machar bar loy Machar meimah. Zok Rabbi Elazar Shimon Ayol, if you sell a bar, you didn't include the water. So too, if I was makdish a bar, I'm not including the water, and therefore I'm giving it. Nasanamar Machar bar Machar meimah. So our mission that we had earlier that says Machar meimah is a shittas yachid of Nasan, but Rabbi Elazar Shimon is learning Machar bar loy Machar meimah, and therefore Hekdesh bar loy Hekdesh meimah. So then you might ask me, I don't understand. I'm being makdish water, even if it's a davar shaloi beloilam. But if it's right here, I'm not being makdish it. If I'm not being makdish what's right here, surely I'm not. If I'm selling it by raw, if I'm being makdish by raw, and I'm not even including water that's here, surely I'm not including water that's a davar shaloi beloilam. Right? It's counterintuitive. So for that, Zok to Rashbam, a beautiful shot, and he says you could only say ayin yafa and ayin ra by things that are here. On future things, there's no such svara that I'm keeping it for myself. Let's have a look where the Rashbam says that inside. Here it is. The bedavar shaloi zocha boyadayin, something that you don't have yet, like water that's eventually going to come. Leka lememer ayin ra. So therefore, according to Belazar B'Shimon, that other makdish davar shaloi beloilam, the water that comes later will be hekdesh. Avol kishabar mole mayim. But when the bar is mole mayim, V'amayim v'abor shaloi, everything belongs to the moicher or to the donator, shaloyin, who hikdish abor, and he was makdish the bor stama, ikalamemar, da'amayim shayir la'atzmoi. There you have Bain Ra. There, the water's here, I want to keep it. But if there's no water here, that you can have everything, and even a dover shaloi below. Developing. They would have to sell it. Yeah. I don't see how else they can benefit. They can't transport a board. They have to sell it. Yeah. They have to sell it. Okay, let's stop here. We'll be Mamshech with Hashem tomorrow. But I mentioned yesterday was September 11th. It was a big day.